getting a cancer diagnosis isn't just one phone call. It's weeks of getting biopsies, scans, and waiting. Welcome to the channel, friends. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the actual journey to actually getting a diagnosis of advanced Hodgkin's lymphoma and what it actually involved. So stick around and I'll go through it all. So in order to categorize lymphoma, there's two broad categories of lymphoma. You've got something called Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then you've got something called non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And Hodgkin's lymphoma is the one that I've got, so that's the one I'm going to be focusing on. And even within Hodgkin's lymphoma, or any lymphomas in general, there's stages that are involved within it, which normally goes between 1 to 4. And that's what I'll go through right now, because once you understand this, the next few steps, it makes sense. So when it comes to actually staging in lymphoma, there's just one thing that you need to be aware of. And what that is this line over here. Now this, it's not just any line, it's actually an organ. It's called the diaphragm. So the diaphragm, it's an organ which separates your lungs from your abdomen, and it's a very big organ, and it helps with your breathing as well. So it's this line over here. That's what they're trying to represent by drawing that. So when it comes to stage 1 lymphoma, all it means is that you've got a lymph node that has the cancer, and it's on the same side, and it's just there, it's on its own, or it's just one area. That's all it is. So that's stage 1 lymphoma. Then you've got stage 2 lymphoma. And what differentiates between stage 1 and stage 2 is that you've got two groups of lymph nodes affected. However, they are both on the same side of the diaphragm. So you could see you've got one lymph node over here and you've got one lymph node over there. So they're two separate areas, but they are both above the diaphragm. So that's what's meant by stage 2. Then stage 3 means that you've got lymph nodes that are affected both above the diaphragm and below the diaphragm. So here is your diaphragm, and you can see above you've got these two, and then below you've got all of these lymph nodes. So that's what you call stage 3 disease. Stage 4 disease means that you have organ involvement, or the other word that they use is extranodal involvement. So write that down. So extra just means more than, and then nodal just means the actual lymph nodes. So if it's more than just lymph nodes, i.e. the actual organs, so for example the liver, the pancreas, the intestines, anything that's not a lymph node, then we're talking about stage 4 disease. And anything that is stage 3 and stage 4, they are classed as advanced disease. So you can basically put a line between the two, and anything over here is advanced disease. And when it comes to the staging as well, at the end of it, they also give a letter A or B. So for example, with stage 1, you might see it as stage 1A or stage 1B. All that really means is that if it's the letter A, that means there are no B symptoms at all. So remember, B symptoms are those 3 symptoms: fevers, night sweats, and weight loss. However, if there is B symptoms, then the letter B gets added. So, you can get stage 2B, meaning that they've got two groups of lymph nodes affected on the same side, and they have B symptoms as well. So now that I've explained that, let me explain the whole process of the diagnosis. So when it comes to a diagnosis of cancer, or in this case lymphoma, there's a few steps that need to be followed. So the first thing is there needs to be a suspicion of cancer. We're not just going to put everyone through ultrasounds or CT scans or biopsies for no reason whatsoever. And that's why the first thing that I went to my GP, and I said that, this lump, can we please get it scanned? And eventually he requested an ultrasound scan, which is one of the most least invasive scans that you can do. So it's a very simple procedure, ultrasound scan. And that's what the GP did. He requested an ultrasound scan. So here I write ultrasound. And this is the first investigation that I actually had. And if you recall, the GP at the time, he thought it's a lipoma. He didn't really suspect cancer, but this ultrasound was just meant to be just to rule anything serious out. So when I actually went to this ultrasound appointment, so the moment that the radiologist scanned the area, he said straight away, this is definitely not a lipoma. This is a lymph node here, and it does look pathological, meaning it does look suspicious for cancer. And that's what he told me. So at that point, he had the suspicion. So that's the first step. The next thing that you need to know, is this actually cancer or not? And which cancer is it? So I write here, which cancer? Because you can't make a diagnosis of cancer just based on an ultrasound. You need something more than that. And the gold standard when it comes to most cancers is something called a biopsy. So what that essentially means is they actually get a sample of whatever it is. So in my case, I had this lump. So they actually wanted to get a sample of cells from there and look at it under the microscope, etc., to actually come up with an exact diagnosis. So this is called a biopsy, and that will tell them whether it is cancer or not, and also which cancer it is. So that's the gold standard. But it doesn't end there. Even after I've had this ultrasound, and even after the biopsy where they found out that it's Hodgkin's lymphoma, they also need to be able to stage the disease, because knowing what stage the cancer is at will determine the treatment that I get. So then comes the next question is, has it spread? So we need to know that, is this cancer just in this area here, or has it spread? Because that's going to affect the treatment. And the test that they done for that was something called a CT of the neck, chest, abdomen, and pelvis. So pretty much from here all the way down to my pelvis. So that would have told them if there are any nodes on either side of the diaphragm, and it will help with the stage of the disease. And based on this CT scan, initially they thought that I'm going to be stage 3B because I did not have any organ involvement in this CT scan. However, from this CT scan, they cannot be 100% sure that there is any involvement of the organs yet or not. So that's where the fourth option comes in as well. So you got number 4, and that's asking the question, is there any organ involvement? And you might think, how do they actually find this out? There's a test that they do, and it's something called a PET CT scan. It's similar to a CT scan, however, they inject you with something radioactive, so essentially radioactive glucose, before the actual scan. And what that will show them in the scan is any areas which are using up more glucose, it will shine brighter in the actual PET scan. So if there is any organ involvement, for example, then it will shine brighter in the actual scan. So I've only just had this scan 2 days ago. I've not got the results yet. So I could be stage 3, I could be stage 4. It just depends on what this PET CT scan shows. But regardless of the two, it doesn't change the treatment. Either way, I am advanced disease, and my treatment is going to be the same whether it's stage 4 or stage 3. So those are the core investigations that they did to actually find out about my cancer. But it wasn't just that. I had a few more investigations as well. The other things that I had done is I had to have fertility preserving. And the reason for this is because the treatment of lymphoma itself, the actual chemotherapy, that can make you infertile after that. And the final thing I had was a breathing test, because the medication that they actually give you during chemotherapy, that can actually damage the lungs. So it's just a baseline test which they can compare later on after chemotherapy to see whether chemotherapy actually had an effect on that at all or not. So that's all the diagnosis side of things. In my next video, I'm going to be going through my first appointment with my consultant hematologist, where we actually discuss the plan.